Good morning and welcome back to another episode of me reading from some sermons I did back in 2010. It's the last series I ever did at the South Lake Church before we merged with the Hills. And it focuses on what I believe is the greatest short story ever told from Luke chapter 15. Yesterday's episode, we took a glimpse at the Father's love. But make no mistake about it, we didn't even touch the tip of the iceberg of that love, nor will we ever. But it did give us a peek at how much our Father loves us. He sees the depth of our hearts, and He loves us the same. He's a Father who runs to us, who goes through the gauntlet of shame and humiliation on our behalf, who covers us with His best robe, puts a ring on her finger, sandals on her feet, and throws a party to celebrate. That's our God. That's our Father. The truth is, if we were writing the story, that's where we would have ended it. I mean, that's the perfect Hollywood ending, right? But yet, Jesus hasn't even gotten to the punchline yet. He hasn't gotten to his primary point for telling the story. There's still another brother to deal with, and he is the reason Jesus tells the story in the first place. Remember, go back to episode 1 and look at Luke 15, 1 and 2, and you see the context for the three stories that Jesus tells the religious leaders who were muttering about Jesus. So let's pick the story up in Act 2, beginning in verse 25. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. Your brother has come, he replied, and your father's killed the fattened calf because of him, because he has him back safe and sound. The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out. I love that. His father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders, yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours who has squandered your property with prostitutes comes home, how did he know that? You kill the fattened calf for him? My son, the father said, and I love this line. In fact, we'll probably dive deeper into it in a future episode. My son, the father said, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. This story shows us in this part a new understanding of lostness. The older brother would have known that this is the greatest day in his father's life. The father has killed the fattened calf, an enormously expensive extravagance in a culture where even having meat at meals was considered a delicacy. When he came in from the fields, he could hear the music and dancing. He knew that a huge celebration was taking place and that the father must be ecstatic with joy. Yet he refused to go into the biggest feast his father has put on. You have to understand that this was a remarkable, deliberate act of disrespect, as much as disrespectful as the younger son had been earlier in Act 1 of the story. It was his way of saying, I won't be part of this family, nor will I respect your leadership of it. His shameful reaction was every bit as shocking as his younger brother's request had been. Do you realize what Jesus is saying to those who were listening and to us? This is a startling new understanding of lostness. the older son was lost too. We typically read this story, and in fact, we even call it the parable of the lost son. That's why I've titled it the prodigal father and two lost sons. Even though he had stayed home, he was just as alienated from his father as his brother was at the beginning. Yet the younger son, the immoral one, comes home and is saved, while the older son, the obedient one, refuses to go in and is lost. The religious leaders who were listening to this knew this was a complete reversal of everything they believed. You can almost hear them gasp. The most startling thing is the realization of what is keeping the older brother out. Look at verse 29 again. But he answered his father, "Look, all these years I have been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders." The older brother is not lost in spite of his good behavior. He is lost because of his good behavior. His self-righteousness is keeping him out. He had been obeying the Father not because he loved the Father, but because he had his heart on the Father's things. And now he sees that his inheritance is being spent on this no good for nothing son who had blown his share of the inheritance on wild living, and now he's returned for my share. He is not liking this. You see, there is more than one way to be lost. Both sought happiness through something other than the Father's love. They both wanted selfish control of the Father's things instead of a relationship with the Father. One wanted to gain control of his father's stuff by running away with it, while the other one wanted to gain control of his father's stuff by staying home and being very good for it. There's more than one way to be lost. The younger son sought happiness through self-discovery in a distant land by breaking all the rules, while the older son sought happiness through moral conformity, by working in his father's field, trying to keep all the rules. Tim Keller, I mentioned that a lot of the thoughts and ideas that I have in this series are shaped and reshaped by his book, The Prodigal God. Notice what Tim Keller says in that book. He says, you can escape God as much through morality and religion as you can escape God through immorality and irreligion. There are two kinds of lostness, and that's why Jesus puts the older brother in the story. Both remind us that there is more than one way to be lost. And Jesus tells this parable primarily to encourage the older brother to come home. Now, tomorrow's episode, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into what the signs of older brother lostness look like. And then I'll share with you the solution to older brother lostness. But I want to just end this episode there. And as you continue to reflect on this story, which is the greatest short story ever told, who are you in this story? Are you the younger son, or are you the older son? Just realize there is more than one way to be lost. But thankfully, we have a Father who goes out to both brothers. So what are you going to do? Hope this has been helpful, and I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.